Hey everyone. So the video that I've actually used in the past is a TED Talk about how to help us solve problems in the rainforest with deforestation, and it's a way that I've introduced the topic of environmental issues and pollution, and I've actually used this a couple times in the past, and it's been really successful in Colombia. And I've done this during Earth Day to kind of like introduce it, and it's kind of Happy Earth Day, but I turned it into an Earth Week. So I noticed actually in Colombia that so many people in the culture would just throw garbage in the streets, and like there's no recycling, at least where I was, and it was kind of an issue that I cared about, but I also wanted students to critically think about this effect and how what they're doing actually affects the world as a whole. So it was a really good issue to bring attention to that could help them critically think. So I introduced this lesson with this video, and I would put the subtitles in as well, and we'd have a discussion about the video. But I also had pre-questions that I would write on the whiteboards, and we'd go through them, make sure that they understood what I was asking, and like, what does he do with the cell phones? I don't know, different questions that would relate throughout the video that were more about listening comprehension and more display questions. So after the video, then I would bring up more in-depth referential questions that, like, if they thought this was a good idea, why or why not, what were the challenges, other ideas that they had that could help the environment. And then from there, I would bring out this bag of garbage, which was always like kind of shocking for them, and I would put them into small groups and each give them a different piece of garbage to look at, and it was just another authentic material for them to kind of relate to from their everyday lives, like water bags or like laundry detergent jugs, milk cartons, different things, bottle caps, and I would give them each this piece, and then they would have to talk about how they could reuse this item in another way. So it brought out, like, creative thinking and critical thinking, which kind of helped them start to think in the idea of, how can they waste less. And then from there, I would bring in a PowerPoint and I would talk about the 7 types of pollution, which included air, land, visual, water, thermal, light, and noise. And I would include pictures and lots of visuals. I would speak and elicit answers and getting them thinking about all of this, and other videos that would kind of, help them think. And I would also use the whiteboard to draw pictures. For example, with thermal pollution, it was kind of hard to explain, where it would be easier to just like draw for them and everything. They learned a lot of vocabulary, and we did gap fills and discussions, and I could always tell that the students felt a little bit disheartened when I'd bring up all these pollutions and they could really relate. And they definitely were all ears, because this was the subject that they hadn't really thought about in their culture, and it was just really interesting to see the wheels turning. We then would talk about reuse, reduce, recycle, which kind of brought back the first, couple of the video where they listened, and the garbage that they talked about in their groups. And we talk about the different things they could reuse, reduce, recycle. And then I would assign the different groups to talk about either one of the pollutions or one of the 3 R's, either reduce, reuse, or recycle, and then they'd give a presentation on it. And they had to critically think and talk about, if they had one pollution, for example, like water pollution, what will happen if nothing changes, and what can we do now to help that problem? So it really brought out a lot of, it was just amazing to see when things were more meaning focused than when it was accuracy focused. And it just incorporated, the lesson is probably one of my most successful lessons that I've done, because it incorporates listening, visuals, critical thinking, creative thinking, and it was just really amazing compared to just, sometimes, a lot of times these days with the curriculum that I'm using now is there's a lot of listening tasks that include just the teacher generated, or it's from the book, where it's just listening, but there's nothing really in depth. It's just listening comprehension, which is great exercise as well. But it was just really interesting to introduce this to the students and see how they took off with it. They also ended up making me jewelry from recycled materials and like potted plants and things. They really ended up using it.